morning of February 28, 2026, a disaster struck the Shajareh Tayyebeh girls' school in Minab, Iran, resulting in the loss of between 168 and 180 lives. Most of the victims were young girls between the ages of 7 and 12. Almost immediately, an information battle erupted. Officials from the United States and Israel denied any responsibility, and some statements even suggested that the tragedy may have been caused by a malfunctioning Iranian interceptor missile. However, with the advancement of technology and digital forensic methods, the truth has gradually begun to emerge. Through digital fingerprints extracted from videos, satellite imagery, and open-source intelligence analysis, investigators from Bellingcat, BBC Verify, and the New York Times have worked to reconstruct what may have actually happened. Welcome back to New Era, a place where we don't just report events, we analyze deeply to understand the why behind major shifts on the global chessboard. In today's video, we will break down the truth behind the Minab airstrike. From the brutal triple-tap strike tactic, which can kill even those attempting to rescue victims, to what analysts call the clinic paradox, revealing potential blind spots in the modern satellite surveillance systems often described as the world's technological all-seeing eyes. At the same time, we will explore a broader and more difficult question. Has Washington's military doctrine begun to tolerate or even accept what is often described as collateral damage? So the central question remains, who actually pulled the trigger? And why did school textbooks become stained with the blood of children? If you believe the truth deserves to be revealed, press like and subscribe so you don't miss the next in-depth analysis. Let's begin. Between 10 o'clock and 10:45 a.m. on February 28th, 2026, Iran time, the tragedy unfolded. At that moment, students were simply changing classes. The school bell rang, just like on any ordinary day, and then disaster struck. The brutality of the event did not lie only in the destructive power of the missile, but also in a tactic known as triple tap, a pattern documented in several modern conflicts. According to testimonies from Iranian Red Crescent medical staff, parents, and the mayor of Minab, reported by Middle East Eye and The Guardian, the initial strike on the school caused part of the building to collapse. The principal rushed to evacuate students into the prayer room and called parents to come and collect their children. But then, additional strikes followed. They hit the very people who had rushed in to help. As a result, not only students, but also parents and rescue workers were killed, leaving behind a scene of devastation. The Guardian described a desperate father digging through the rubble. In his hands were school textbooks covered in dust and blood. He cried out, "These are children's books. They are civilians, not soldiers." The scattered pages of textbooks, lying among ashes and debris, became perhaps the most powerful indictment of the price of modern warfare. Soon after the tragedy, education activist Malala Yousafzai spoke out on the platform X. She wrote, "They were just girls going to school, and with hopes and dreams for the future. Today their lives were brutally cut short." Those 175 lives, most of them girls aged 7 to 12, are not simply statistics. They are a painful reminder that when collateral damage happens again and again, the largest unanswered question still remains. Where is justice in modern war? Immediately after the incident, a series of explanations began to circulate. One of the most repeated claims was this: the school was located within the grounds of an IRGC naval base, so the strike was merely unintended collateral damage. However, independent investigations by Al Jazeera Digital Investigations, Human Rights Watch, and CBS News began to dismantle that argument. They pointed to what analysts call the clinic paradox. In 2013, the Shajareh Tayyebeh girls' school was indeed located inside the Sayyid al-Shuhada naval complex of the IRGC. But in September 2016, a new wall was built, separating the school from the military base. From that moment onward, it operated as an independent civilian educational facility. Nearby, the Martyr Absallah Clinic opened in January 2025, provided healthcare services to the Hormozgan region, although it remained administratively linked to the IRGC Navy. On February 28, 2026, and when the military base was attacked, the school was destroyed, yet the nearby clinic suffered only minimal damage. This raised a difficult question. If U.S. satellite reconnaissance systems, often described as having resolution high enough to read license plates from orbit, can detect a newly built civilian clinic within a year, then how could those same systems fail to recognize a clearly separated elementary school that had existed persisted for nearly a decade. Was this a serious intelligence and targeting failure, or was it a calculated military decision, one in which the risk to civilians was simply accepted as collateral damage during an airstrike campaign? It is true that building schools close to military installations can create dangerous conditions during wartime. However, the school had operated independently behind a protective wall for nearly 10 years. Under international law and humanitarian principles, schools and children receive special protection. The presence of a nearby military facility does not remove that protection, nor does it justify attacks against civilians. Satellite imagery from Planet Labs and Maxar Technologies highlights a troubling paradox in the era of precision warfare and advanced surveillance. Can the consequences of modern war still be called an accident? Amid international scrutiny, US President Donald Trump denied American involvement, suggesting instead that Iran's own inaccurate weapons may have been responsible. However, evidence compiled by Bellingcat and other investigative analysts tells a different story. Video footage indicates the weapon used was a Tomahawk cruise missile. The projectile seen striking the Minab area shows straight folding wings, a distinctive tail section with 4 stabilizing fins, a low-altitude subsonic flight profile. All of these characteristics match the BGM-109 Tomahawk, a precision-guided cruise missile used primarily by the US military in this conflict. Iran does not possess Tomahawk missiles. Experts such as Jeffrey Lewis have confirmed that the footage does not match any known Iranian smart weapon system. Now, some analysts in the United States have also acknowledged that only US forces possess the operational capability consistent with the strike profile observed. As a result, the political narrative of denial is becoming increasingly difficult to sustain. When the digital fingerprint of a Tomahawk appears clearly in video evidence, the question is no longer only who was responsible, but why responsibility was denied. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth avoided direct responsibility, stating that American forces do not intentionally target civilians, while simultaneously supporting looser rules of engagement. The Minab tragedy now appears to fit into a longer historical pattern: strike, denial, independent investigation, eventual acknowledgement of civilian harm. History records similar episodes, from the bombing of Baghdad in 1991 to the Qana tragedy in 1996, showing how civilian lives often become the hidden cost of military operations. The pattern rarely changes. The blood of children, women, and civilians becomes the price of strategic calculation or battlefield necessity. Today, the human rights organization Dawn, Democracy for the Arab World Now, has officially called on Iran and other regional states to grant jurisdiction to the International Criminal Court, ICC, to investigate potential war crimes, including the Minab attack, where more than 150 girls and teachers were killed. So what do you think? Can collateral damage truly exist when hundreds of precision missiles are deliberately launched into residential neighborhoods, schools, and hospitals? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Justice can only emerge when voices around the world demand accountability. The Minab girls' school tragedy is not simply an intelligence failure, it is a moral verdict on modern warfare. When the most advanced satellites in the world can read a license plate from space, no argument can justify flattening a school filled with children's laughter. Those 175 lives are not just numbers in Pentagon reports. Justice for Minab will not only depend on identifying who caused the loss of life, but on awakening international law, so that blood-stained textbooks never appear again anywhere in the world. If this analysis helped you understand the situation more clearly, like the video and share it with your friends. Don't let misinformation take control. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated hour by hour, because this conflict is evolving by the minute. Thank you for staying with New Era. We will continue bringing you the latest strategic developments shaping this unfolding crisis.